Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the NBA Betting Show. With me, as always, is Mike Lockney and Matt Meiselman. They have thoughts on possible value today. Interesting stuff yesterday. I'm Mike G. I have no voice, so I will be sitting out most of the discussion, but try to keep things moving. Matt, I think we're going to start with the Kelly Olynyk Bogdanovich, who has bigger revenge game narrative today. Let's start with Utah, Detroit, and I will probably go on mute. Go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it's definitely Kelly Olynyk. So yesterday we, oh, there you are. You guys did the switching sides thing. That's cool. So yesterday we talked about Kelly Olynyk for this game because he sat yesterday. Um, it was the front end of a back to back. He was dealing with an ankle injury, and we kind of just speculated like it would make no sense for them to force him to play 2 consecutive nights on a bad ankle. Let's hold him out of the front end so that we can play him in his former building in Detroit on the second leg of the back-to-back. So Olynyk should be there tonight, but we don't know about some of the other key Utah players. And we are showing a bet right now on the Jazz, but I think we have to wait. So I think we will get Olynyk confirmed in, but it could be a Mike Conley rest game. And
Conley's the name that jumped out to me also as I was looking.
And if he's out, we don't have a bet anymore.
Yep.
You know what? Let me. I'm gonna put Conley's name in here. Right. We don't really think there's another guy. Like I could see Markkanen getting a rest game because he just played in Cleveland, but Conley's the most likely. So
yeah, I think Conley's the most likely by a lot.
This has been happening a bunch lately where
I'm not
just
seeing any reason for Vanderbilt or Beasley or none of these other guys I think are going to sit. So is this one that if Conley's at shoot around, are you betting Utah?
I don't think we'll get a shoot around today. It's a little different than that. The back-to-back thing, we're just going to get formal injury report. He's resting. Like this is not a guy trying to return from an injury. This is not a guy dealing with an injury. This is just the team might just be like, we don't want to play him. So it's all going to happen in one shot. There won't be a downgrade. There won't be anything like that. I think all of that just doesn't apply to this situation.
Or if he is suddenly questionable, it'll be assumed out, in our opinion.
If that does happen, yeah, I think probably that won't be how it goes. But if we get Conley downgraded, he's not playing. So, yeah, I think that one's pretty clear cut. And he's worth about 2 points. So we don't really have a bet without him.
I think so unless the market moves.
Yeah, so there are two ways that I would start to get money in on Utah. One is if the line drops further, like if there's a -1.5 instead of a -2.5. I'm interested then because there's just so much upside if Conley does play, and it's not even that bad if he doesn't. Like we'd still have a plus EV bet. And then the other one is if we get Olynyk upgraded, the market may react, and then you may miss out on this -2.5. So if we know the line is going to move, it might be worth betting -2.5 and then cashing out later or hedging later. You know, like if Olynyk were to get upgraded, but then Conley were going to get ruled out later. I do think we're going to get all their news at the same time, though. So basically, Utah is a bet if the injury report is clean, and if it's not, we probably just have nothing. Got it. Okay. The only other question I have for that game is, will there be a Kelly Olynyk tribute video at the Pistons arena? Yeah, there will be. Yeah, they did a Markkanen one in Cleveland yesterday. I think the Pistons are going to just copy that. They must have prepared one, right? The Bogdanovich Olynyk trade revenge.
How long was he there? He wasn't even there that long.
1 year, 2 years.
Come on, if they do a tribute video,
but everyone likes tribute videos. Tribute videos for everybody. Alec Burks is going to get one when he returns to Detroit next year. I think even the Detroit fans would say, wait, Olynyk play for us? Yeah, they might be saying that. Well, so Bogdanovich versus Olynyk was the trade, and these teams have already played each other once, and it certainly was a big deal for Bogdanovich, but that game was in Utah. So this is the first one in Detroit. He was in Utah for much longer than Olynyk was in.
That I agree with. Yeah, he was there for a while. I see that being a bigger deal to him.
Yeah. And he played playoff series with them. Like
Olynyk played one season in Detroit, right?
Yeah, it's not really a big deal. But it's a big enough deal that they sat him in the Cleveland game so he could play in the Detroit game.
So, I don't think there's anything actionable about this. But to me, it just, one of my things is I feel like he's had a lot of practice time against this team, right? Like, maybe maybe he's just calling, I don't know. Like, there's
These are his friends. Yeah, he knows them.
Yeah. All right, I think we're reaching now.
I think all we're using the revenge to say is that he'll probably play tonight. That's it.
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
it's a long drawn out troll, especially
Yeah.
in this example.
Yeah.
It was a very long bit. All right, let's move to the next game that there's potential value. We want to talk Miami, Chicago next.
Yeah, we're skipping over Knicks Warriors. There's no bet here, but just a quick call out. The Knicks are around -130 or -140 to make the playoffs on some of the sites. We've basically been saying to average into Knicks playoff bets because they've had a few games in a row now where they've been underdogs, like very slight underdogs, but they've been really pivotal games for playoff probability. And each
Smashing.
one they've won at Chicago, at Indiana. It was a crazy road trip for them. They're on a 7-game winning streak. So the Knicks are looking really good for the playoffs, and I think more wins is just more betting. Like I wish we had just bet it all at the beginning, but we didn't know they were going to win all of these games.
Right.
We were projecting all of those as coin flips. So they're 3-0 on the last 3 coin flips. They're now at 78% to make the playoffs on 538. Caesars has them at -170 on the betting line. Bet Rivers and Barstool only have -134. If they win tonight, -134, like I'm adding more. It's another really good bet. So if the Knicks lose, it's not like your playoff bets are ruined. They're playing the Warriors, who don't matter as much, but we're averaging in here because we don't know what the best number we're going to be able to get is. But I think like it's just continuing to get better every time they win. So another Knicks
Yeah, I
win.
think
I'm adding more to the playoff bet.
I think that's a reoccurring theme here with futures. We started with hockey a little bit this year. We looked into baseball, but didn't look into or didn't do much of them. I would be interested next year, but I think it's kind of you look at the opportunities available to you each week, and you just kind of take a little bit at a time, right? So like, with the Celtics, that would have been a great plan. You could have had this great price, but like you don't really know when you're going to get the best price. Like maybe Celtics preseason weren't that great a price last year, right? But it was that when they were 500 in the middle of January where you started getting these large numbers. Boston Bruins, we've had some great numbers on them, and now they're a big favorite for the NHL. There's something about futures where you can embrace the chaos because the math is usually going to predict ahead of time what's actually happening here, right? So like the Knicks, the math's been ahead of the market for a very long time, and it keeps staying ahead based on the results of these games. Yeah. So by not over investing in early parts of the season, I think it helps stay afloat and helps like kind of control the variance to some degree.
To that point, like the reason to not go crazy with bet amounts on futures, it's one because there's an opportunity cost. Like you're tying up your money for a whole season, but then like we have all these examples we could probably come up with if we had enough time of bets that we almost made, but we were waiting for a result, and then we didn't make them, and we were better off not making them. Like the Pelicans to be the 1 seed in the Western Conference, it was like, hey, let's wait to see if they win these games against Phoenix and against Utah and like whatever, let's wait to see what happens. And now they're on a bit of a losing streak, and I'm pretty happy that I don't have the Pelicans to be the 1 seed bet right now. I mean, if you'd bet it before the year, sure, whatever. But at like plus 300, it definitely doesn't look good right now. And there are countless examples, at least for me, of bets where I was like, all right, this is a pretty good bet, but the probability of it could drop significantly if the next game or two goes poorly. So I'll bet a little bit, but I want to wait before I invest a lot. And then a lot of the time, like it'll just go bad, and then you just don't make the bet, and then you forget about it forever, and that's fine. Like you don't want to just bet every single future you can find that even looks slightly good because you're going to run out of bankroll. So we have to be a little bit weary of opportunity cost because that is a thing. So with the Knicks, like we've been averaging in, but another win, it's worth putting in more. Like the Knicks, everyone's different in how they've handled this. Some people have no Knicks bets. Some people have so much that they don't want to add. Everyone's different. For me personally, I've been betting like a half a unit at a time after every Knicks win in this recent run. And if they win again tonight, it'll just be more of the same.
Got it. All right. So as Cam Reddish keeps sitting out, the Knicks prospects go up. Keep that one in mind.
The Quentin Grimes and Emmanuel Quickley show.
And the Knicks team rating, by the way, I'm gonna click. It's kind of hilarious to compare them to the other teams playing on tonight's slate. Here we go. The Knicks are a 4.4 team rating, which is better than Utah, about even with the Suns, only a little worse. Like they're almost in this tier now. Memphis and Denver, with Murray and Porter projected in right now. Miami with Lowry projected in. The Knicks are only a notch worse than that. Surprised
you buy that?
Yeah, why not?
Because Julius Randle's on the team, and
Okay, so
I mean, I get Brunson's good. I get that these other guys are good.
the thing with Randall and Barrett, though, they're both negative player ratings.
Yeah.
Like, despite the fact that Barrett and Randall are considered to be bad, this rating is showing up. That's why I buy it. I mean, the only player to have strong skepticism about is Emmanuel Quickley. But, like, we're getting this despite the fact that Randall and Barrett are rated negative. And it's really, like, Brunson is good. I think anyone who's watching the Knicks at all lately would agree Quentin Grimes is a good player. His defense is great. And he's a fine offensive player. Like, he does his job.
I cannot say I'm one of the people that have watched the Knicks lately, but
I haven't watched much either.
I trust that you have.
I really haven't, but I've seen Grimes play enough to know, like, he's a guy who can knock down an open shot. He's, like, the classic 3-and-D guy, and he plays good defense. So, yeah, like, there's no reason why he wouldn't be good. And then Hartenstein and Robinson is, like, an actually competent center duo. They're not playing Jericho Sims as much. They're not playing Obi Toppin. They're not playing Cam Reddish. All the players in the rotation, with the exception of Randall and Barrett, are good players.
Who else besides Hartenstein's playing center?
They had Jericho Sims. They still have Sims playing, but he's not playing quite as much. When Robinson was out, the Knicks really struggled because Toppin and Sims were playing a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking Mitchell Robinson. I do appreciate him on the court. He's a fun guy. So, all right. So I do agree. We've got a few Knicks bets I could definitely see adding on here.
Yep. And as the Raptors keep losing and some of these other teams around keep losing, it becomes more and more likely that the Knicks are in the top 6 at the end of the regular season, not just the 7 or 8 seed.
Not in the playoff.
Yeah,
not in the playoff.
And don't want to go too overboard on this, but it's just as like when you're talking about Toronto, at some point they lose any more games, they might be looking at a blow it up, trade Van Vliet, and then not necessarily tank, but just collect assets.
I have a couple of Toronto championship futures, and for that reason, I don't really like what you're saying, but I think I agree with it.
I think it's probably more likely that they trade their better players than they win the championship.
Yeah, I think Fred VanVleet would be a great fit in Utah.
There we go. We have some Utah championship futures that
I feel like he's like a Miami Heat for sure.
Yeah, that's fine, whatever. But he would be fine there. But in Utah, it would be very exciting for us. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with them going to Miami as far as like where they fit. But yes, in Utah, we would be much happier.
I have none of the Utah futures you have. I don't want anyone going there.
Utah, I forgot to mention this one when we did our when I did my full list of Utah futures. I forgot one. I have them at like 600 to 1 to win the championship. So give me Fred VanVleet. Maybe we become a contender. Yep.
All right. Let's
game.
Move on. Yeah, let's move on to the next game. Can you go to the value tab for a sec?
Yeah, that was a good segue into Miami.
So Chicago, Miami, we're going to talk about. Let me get on the future trade. So let's talk about tonight. Miami, Chicago. Looks like if we get Lowry and Caleb Martin in, then we have a bet on Miami. Is that the take?
Yeah, I may actually. I'm debating if Miami is worth betting now because we do have a -4 at Bet Rivers, Barstool, Sugar House, Unibet. We need a name that combines all 4 of them. They're all the same odds. They have -4.
There's definitely something in the fine print that's a name for all of them at the bottom of a screen somewhere. I promise.
Yeah, well, let's find
it. There's some circuit, but whatever.
We did just get some news actually.
All right.
For the Knicks game. Dante DiVincenzo is going to be out tonight, and he has a 1.8 player rating, and the guys behind him are pretty awful. I think we're gonna like the Knicks. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I think the Knicks are -5 projected at 6.4. I think we're gonna have them projected about -8 now. We're gonna have a 1-unit bet at -5.
So that's a recommendation for right now.
Knicks -5. I mean, it just came through from RotoWire that DiVincenzo is unlikely to play, and I don't see it yet from Underdog. I just want to confirm. Oh, there it is. I don't know how quickly the line's going to move. It might not be that fast. But Knicks -5, 1 unit. That's what I just did. DiVincenzo's been playing a lot with Steph Curry out and Wiggins out, and he's actually good. And their depth is a problem. There's not a lot of depth on this Warriors team. What they may be doing also, they have a back-to-back in Brooklyn tomorrow. Clay will probably sit tomorrow. They'll just play DiVincenzo in that game.
Got it.
Like, I think that's definitely on the table. I was just scanning for any Ty Jerome or Moses Moody props. I don't see any. Those would be the
Okay.
Goddamn
beneficiaries.
shame.
Those are those are the two players we're going to see more of tonight as a result.
Got it.
I mean,
All right.
yeah, Knicks -5. This is probably not. I don't know if it's going to move much. Maybe it moves to 5.5 or 6. Like DiVincenzo belongs on our list of players who,
Low
like,
key are better than the ratings or better than the market thinks.
yeah, he's just like Austin Reeves. He's just like Emmanuel Quigley and Javonte Green and
Show All Stars.
make a list of
NBA Show All Stars. All
that
right.
team. That team would beat the Lakers so badly if you just took those players and put them against LeBron.
Partly because you're taking Austin Reeves off the Lakers to begin with. So
Oh
right.
yeah, the Lakers have no chance if they don't have Austin Reeves.
all right.
The other thing
Chicago
I'm
Miami.
looking at, I think I may want to jump forward a second because FanDuel is showing a +7.5 on Washington, which I think is also a bet right now. But it's a tentative bet. I'll explain why. We can come back to the Miami game right after.
Okay. Let's talk.
So-
talk about.
I'm personally going half unit on the Wizards at +7.5 right now, and it may end up being a neutral bet, and I'll leave that to everyone's
That's
judgment.
break even if Booker and Paul play. But
Right, it's break even worst case. That's why I'm doing it. But I think there's upside for guys to be out. We will come back to Miami.
I don't see a 7.5 yet, but I think I agree with what you're saying.
FanDuel is the only 7.5, which is why I'm taking it because we're not going to have another 7.5. Like, I mean, we may later, but we don't currently have one. Actually, MGM 7.5 at -115. FanDuel's is -112. MGM is fine too. I don't think Chris Paul is playing tonight. I think Devin Booker is, though.
I think I agree with that.
They did have a blowout last night. Yeah, this is just it. The Miami game is interesting, but this game I think it's
I want to talk about full minutes. I want to see how many minutes those Suns players got.
they
in an
played too
absolute
much,
blowout.
right? Like you were commenting about
I
that.
made a
off air.
comment about it last
Chris
night.
Paul played
Like, they were-
31 minutes last night. I don't know why. They
They
were
were in the game with the full set of starters with like 7 minutes left in the fourth, up like 28 or something. Like I was just like, huh?
Yep.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, really weird. I think
Yeah, Chris Paul played 31 minutes. How is that possible?
I don't know. But I think Paul is only going to sit if Booker is ready. But I think Booker is going to be ready. But that doesn't matter.
I think it's pretty unlikely they both play.
Yeah, I think it's
what
really
you're
unlikely
saying
they
is-
both play. But I also think it's unlikely they both sit.
Paul may push if he has to if Booker sits. I agree with that. And if Booker's ready to go, Paul may get the night off. I think that's fair.
Yes.
And it appears like they are, Booker's a little bit more important, but not a ton more important. Both are going to be relevant to
Yeah.
moving the line.
So we have a fair line of about 5 if just Chris Paul is out, which I think is the most likely scenario. But DeAndre Ayton could also sit. He just returned from an injury and played last night. I think he's probable, but this could end up with a lot of upside. The Suns are not traveling, so this is not one where I'm like predicting a mass rest here. I also think the current line has. Hold on. Okay, Cameron Payne is already projected out. He's been injured. Jock Landale is projected in, and he probably only matters if Ayton is out,
I
but
agree.
it adds additional upside potentially. It also, Landale sat last night in Ayton's return. They could stagger that,
agree.
where Ayton sits and Landale plays, which would be another point or so against Phoenix. So this is a bet where I think worst case it's neutral, which is why I'm betting it now. And there's upside for a bunch of weird ways this can go where the Wizards look like a much better bet. So it's
All
good
right,
enough for
sounds
like
good.
3/4 of a unit, which if just Chris Paul is out, it's 2.5 points of value for me. That's like 3/4 of a unit. That's what I have in currently. And if we get news where it's more extreme than that, I'm just going to add. But for now, yeah, a little less than a unit bet. And I think Paul probably won't play.
I think I'm in agreement there.
And let's
Do you want to
just-
move on to the Memphis-Denver game?
No, let's go back to Miami because we skipped that one.
Oh, we skipped that one. Okay.
Yeah. So the Knicks line hasn't really moved. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to get -5. The market is just unaware that Dante DiVincenzo matters, but I think he matters a lot.
I don't blame him.
Yeah. They just like, how would they? They just don't. They're just not aware. Okay, so -5 for the Knicks, still available. I think it'll probably go up throughout the day, but for now, the market
I
is
don't know.
just slow.
Well, there's always enough Golden State Warrior backers that surprised me in their lines. So
Yeah, but without
it's also
Steph
Knicks
Curry,
backers
without
on the
Steph
other side.
Curry, yeah, right. You have the Knicks bias, and there's also no Steph Curry, which is going to make everyone a lot less excited to bet on the Warriors.
Understood.
And the Knicks are on a winning streak. But I still think you're right. I still think the public is skewed Golden State.
You can't rule it out. People
Yeah.
just click the name sometimes.
But it'll probably be around, like, public betting for this game, I think, is entirely irrelevant. I think it probably will be around level.
I think I agree. I was just trying to explore a thought.
Okay. Well, it's the same deal in Miami. This is not like a public betting thing either. It's just we need to know if Kyle Lowry's playing. So we
Yep.
have a bet. Basically, we have a bet on the Heat if Lowry plays. This is it, and we don't really know. He missed a couple games, so he rested. We thought he would return from that for the Mexico City game, but they held him out with a knee injury for that game. So he missed 2 in a row, and he's questionable again. I think you could argue like they were playing a game in a different country against the Spurs. They didn't need to push him. And this game is more important. They're playing the Bulls, who are around them in the standings. Well, I guess the Bulls are kind of below everyone in the standings. But the Bulls are a perceived Eastern
They'll
Conference
take it.
playoff foe. This game matters way more than playing San Antonio. I think my lean is Lowry returns, but I don't have a lot of confidence in it. So I want to wait because this line doesn't
If
appear to be
Lowry
going
in,
anywhere.
we're going to try to take Miami 4.5 or whatever
Yep.
the best available is. You'll have it as a projected line of 7.5 if Lowry and Martin play. Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, 7.3 if
7.3.
both are in. Martin's gonna. It'll only be about 6.5 projected if Martin is out. So it's not even that great if just Lowry is in. We kind of need the full Miami team to make it a really good bet. But I think it's worth having something just from Lowry. And if you can get a -4, which there are a couple of right now, at our quadrant of books, actually they just moved slightly. All those sites have -4.5 at -107. But whatever, that would be a pretty good bet if just Lowry's in. It would be fine. Like I would have some money on it for sure. Is it a half unit bet? Is it a full unit bet? I don't know, but it would be fine.
Somewhere in that ballpark. All right, so might get a little bit of action down on the Heat if news breaks a certain way.
We just need Lowry in. Yeah, that's the main piece. So no recommendation there. Very similar to Utah. We're just waiting to make sure their guys are in.
Got it. All right. Memphis, Denver. What are we looking at there?
Okay, so we have 2 major players who are questionable, and actually 3. I just couldn't fit them all on this row. Interestingly enough, KCP and Michael Porter Jr. have roughly the same player rating. MPJ is more offense, KCP is more defense. They're both around neutral right now. The MPJ player rating has gone down a bit since the start of the year. I don't think he's had a great season. So it's just...
He hasn't impressed me in a while.
Yeah. And he's been dealing with injuries. He got upgraded to doubtful yesterday, though. So we probably should assume he's 50-50 or maybe even slightly higher than that. But
Okay.
Murray got downgraded to questionable. I think this team is on a back-to-back. Do I have that wrong? When is Denver's next game? They didn't play last night. Okay, never mind. They're not playing tomorrow.
No back-to-back.
No back-to-back. I thought they were playing tomorrow. So for Porter, I think he's slightly better than 50-50.
Bulls are on a back-to-back tomorrow.
Yeah, the Bulls play tomorrow, and so do the Warriors.
No worries.
For Porter, I think he's slightly above 50-50 to play. I think Murray's slightly below 50-50 to play, and I think KCB is probably also slightly above 50-50. But we kind of, in order to have a bet, we need probably at least 2 of them, because this one is really hard to produce in the sheet as far as estimated values because it compounds.
Right.
These players, like if only one of these 3 guys is out, even if it's Murray, who's the most important one, he's worth about 2 points. We have the game projected pick 'em. I think the line is +2 right now. So we could still have a bet even without Murray. And then the other thing about that is that if Murray gets ruled out, the market will probably overreact to that. And we
Right.
could get Denver at like +2.5, +3. So we're
Right.
definitely waiting here regardless. And then I think the bets come if all three guys play, or Murray gets ruled out and we take the higher number. But if more than one of these players are ruled out, we probably don't have a bet. And
Yeah,
this
it sounds
game is
good. It seems pretty straightforward. I don't think there's anything extra to think about on the Memphis side.
no.
I don't think there's anything else to consider on the Denver side.
Grizzlies PR
news-
tweeted the injury report yesterday, by the way, so we don't have to worry about a surprise thing. They tweeted it with no one on it, except for the guys that were already out, like Desmond
Did it come
Bain.
with the after game pizza?
No, only the Wolves do that.
Oh, I get them mixed up.
The Wolves are crazy.
All right, so we have some value today. We have some potential value today, depending on how the news breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Anything else for today before we recap the highs and the lows of yesterday?
Oh yeah, no, I think we should do the recap. It just occurred to me, like, you basically are just Doc Rivers today. That's the voice. That's what I'm getting from it.
Those are fighting words.
That's so mean. It's so mean.
Don't worry, your analysis is well above his. It's just how it sounds.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
You would put Matisse Thybulle in the starting lineup,
Yes.
no matter what. Gun to, like, if someone held a gun to your head and was like, you can't start him, be like, no, I have to. It's worth my life to start him.
I don't know about worth my life, but I think I would be starting, or I would at least be playing him on a regular basis.
But you hear it now, right? It sounds like Doc.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to
I'll hear it.
yesterday.
I can't even come back with a response right now. I'm so offended. All right, let's talk about yesterday. I was out yesterday, so I missed all the things that apparently there were some great calls. There were some good results. There were some bad results. Where do you want to start, Matt? What's the first thing you want to bring up?
Okay. We'll start with the worst one, I think. And then we'll get to the exciting ones. Yeah, I tweeted on Sunday that the Hawks should be favored by more than 7 against the Magic, who are winning every game now. And, well, the caveat was if DeJounte Murray and John Collins return. And it seemed pretty likely they were going to return.
Good call, number one. We were well ahead of the market
Yep.
on both DeJounte and John Collins. We had a whole conversation about how, we expect the news to go a certain way and why we thought they were both going to be in. They both ended up playing. They're both extremely relevant pieces to the game. We thought the fair line at closing was like 10.5, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, 10 and a half, somewhere around there. And we
Yeah,
had a
so,
huge help from our friend Kevin, who was tweeting relentlessly about their shoot-around updates, including a slow-motion video of John Collins shooting a corner 3. He tweeted the same thing 3 times in a row. I think he was trying to, perfect the tweet. But we knew those guys were at shoot-around in the morning, so I had bet it at -6.5 Sunday night. Then it moved to 7. It was still 7 yesterday morning when they were at shoot-around.
I got some 7s and 7.5s.
We were on the show with 7, right? We gave the
Yeah.
recommendation Hawks -7 during the show
Yep.
when Kevin was tweeting about it. So the line ended up closing at 9, and the Hawks were up by 12 with a minute 45 left in the game. It felt like it might have been a little more time than that, but the Magic went on a 13-0 run, took the lead, and then DeJounte Murray got fouled at the end and made 2 free throws, and the Hawks won by 1. I can't really explain the result there. The closing line value was great. The public was entirely on the Magic, which sort of justified why the line was bad in the first place. But this wasn't an enormous bet. We had 3 points of value, or 3.5. For me, it was more, so I had a little bit more money on it because I got the -6.5. But just a frustrating result because we had timed everything so well. The game was going well, and then the Hawks decided to turn the ball over 3 times in a row. So they just didn't care about winning.
Yeah, I ended up with a little more than a unit on this, if I recall
Same.
correctly, and I decided not to hedge any off, but I think I was okay with my decision.
Yeah.
This is one of those that, there's, the Magic are the current Cinderella team that is overperforming in a short
Are you sure it's
sample
not the
size.
Spurs? Because look at that game just below it.
Look, I hear you. They also beat the Rockets, right? Whereas the Magic have a current win streak,
Yeah, fair
multiple Celtics victories, multiple Raptors victories. It's just been impressive overall. And like, so you know, is this team so young that like maybe they're improving a lot in real time? Yeah, probably. But I think the ratings are accounting for that.
And
I
we
think
have
our
manual
factors,
adjustments on them now. That's another part of it.
and you know, we're putting in manual adjustments that just factor in case we're wrong. But you know, I just think that, you know, for the short period of time, we're gonna be anti-backing the Magic, and hopefully it starts falling our way a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so Hawks game, called everything right. Weird last minute of the game, so be it. All
Yep.
right, what's the next game you want to chat about?
Okay. Better results here in OKC. Where are you?
Oh yes,
That was my
So-
favorite game of yesterday by far. Okay, so this line opened at 7.5 for
Yes, during
actually.
the show we had 7.5, and we got the Nurkic news in real time. That was a little bit unexpected. Matt estimated Nurkic was worth about 2 points in real time, so we went ahead and I fired 7.5. I fired some money lines in the 235 to 240 range, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And Matt, I'm sure you did something similar.
Yeah, there's some relevant stuff here for Blazers and Thunder games in the future, which is part of the reason we do these recaps, not just so we can pat ourselves on the back and complain about all our losses, but also because there is information here we can use for the next time these teams play. So first of all, I said the game opened at 7. That's not actually true. The Blazers opened at only -3 the night before, and then we got SGA and Giddey ruled out, and the line went up to 7.5. That was we were looking at that as an overcorrection anyway, because even without any additional news before we found out about Nurkic, we had the projected line around 5.5. So we were already looking at that as an overcorrection. And the main reason it's an overcorrection is because Josh Giddey is not good right now, and Isaiah Joe is way better than him. That's the main reason that it's an overcorrection.
And so we got the nut run out. We got a surprise SGA in. Well, it's not that much of a surprise. So like I feel like there's a thing that happens sometimes when a guy gets ruled out for, you know, air quotes tanking, that like there's sometimes the following game he's either assumed out, assumed questionable, or assumed in, and like the difference there is weird to me sometimes. I was surprised at the time that he was not considered in, and I think we got upgraded to questionable, and that was somewhat surprising. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, I'll give the order of events again, but I was texting my friend Greg, who works for Stochastic, and he was saying like it was just bad reporting. Like he thought SGA was going to play the whole time.
Gotcha.
So very much in agreement with what you just said. And yeah, I think that makes sense. Sometimes like it's just they mislabel the injury report because they haven't updated yet from the previous game.
Right.
So he was never actually ruled out. So we were on the show, and it was 7.5 for OKC. And the first thing that happened that people can use going forward, we have a new PR account that is well ahead of Underdog, Trailblazers PR.
Okay.
We're gonna want this
Talk to
one.
me. Give me the exact.
Because we were sitting here, and anyone who watched the show yesterday will probably vaguely remember this, or you can go back and see it. But on my screen over here, I had Trailblazers PR tweet that Nurkic was downgraded to questionable, and we didn't get an Underdog update on it for like 45 seconds. And the line
is Trailblazers PR not a verified account?
I think that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I think they are not verified.
The Grizzlies and Timberwolves ones, I think, were verified. So this one, it does have 29,000 followers.
Okay, so non-verified
at Trailblazers PR.
Yep. So they tweeted Nurkic was downgraded to questionable, and we were already showing value on OKC, and we also had Jeremy Grant questionable. So there was only upside. We had a good bet that was likely to become even better. So I had already bet over a unit on OKC at that point just from Nurkic. And then after that, we got SGA upgraded, which I guess was not really an upgraded. That happened after the show was over. So I ended up with like 3 units on the Thunder at like +7.5, +7. Fortunately, that like made up for a lot of the other bad stuff that happened yesterday.
It didn't move to 5 for you?
It moved to 5. Like it moved to 5 from there.
But you already had 3 units in?
Yeah. It didn't move from Nurkic. It only moved to 7 from Nurkic. It moved to 5 when SGA was upgraded. So I was able to get more in at 7.
I must have misremembered that.
Yeah, it didn't move much from Nurkic because he was only downgraded to questionable. And then when Nurkic finally got ruled out, the line closed at like 4.5. Grant played, but we were still showing a bet even at tip-off. Like, you know, for the people who can't follow this all day, you could have bet OKC plus 4.5 at tip off and still had a bet. So we got a way better number, but it was still a good bet even right when the game started. And then SGA made a shot at the buzzer, and the Thunder won by 2. And Isaiah Joe had another solid game because is he going to be in the 3-point contest? I think he deserves it. You have to unmute for this response.
Nothing would make me happier than to see Isaiah Joe in the 3-point contest, other than Matisse Thybulle getting minutes.
Yeah. Or what about Isaiah Joe getting traded back to the Sixers? Can we have that?
That'd be great. Tobias Harris straight up.
Yeah. I mean, for like without a doubt, Isaiah Joe is a better player than Tobias Harris. I don't even know if a regular basketball fan can argue that one. But Joe is shooting 46% from 3 this year. He's legitimately been a great shooter. Well above his career averages, but the sample size before this year was pretty small. He's actually getting some run this year with OKC. He's good.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when guys actually get playing time and don't have to look over their shoulder.
Yep.
You know, the guy shot close to 40% on 8 threes a game in college. Like he looked like a pro player then, and then he got into the Sixers machine, and the rest is history. All right, go OKC, at least for us.
Yep.
A lot of money in the bank account from that game, money lines, and the spread. Anything else on that game, or are we ready to move on? Is there another one worth talking about for yesterday?
Lakers Suns.
Lakers Suns.
Unfortunately, this is a game I personally lost money on, and I'm pretty sure anyone who followed us didn't, because I had more on the under for the game than anything else. So when Booker got ruled out at first, my recommendation was, we had talked about what was going to happen because I thought Booker would be out, was wait, don't do anything, because we're going to get LeBron ruled out later, and we're just going to bet Phoenix. But the under was we didn't talk about this on the show. The total comes down a lot from Devin Booker. So it was like 231.5. So personally, I did what I said, and then additionally, I bet the under for the game. So the total came down from like 231 to 228 off the Booker news, and then it went down to like 226 off the LeBron news. And then when Westbrook got rolled out, it was like 224. This total dropped a lot. So I had a good amount on the under. And I also, some of my Phoenix spread bets were parlayed with unders. The game went over by 3. So that was pretty annoying. It was very similar to that Hawks-Grizzlies game, but not as extreme, but like same idea of like we were on the right side. And I'm happy that I didn't tell people to bet the total, because it would have been the right call, but results-wise, it wasn't good, because the total dropped like 7.5 points. But as far as what we did tell people to do is as soon as the LeBron game against Washington the prior night ended, and maybe even before it ended, I think I tweeted it during the game with like a minute left, LeBron is doubtful for the next game. Because the Lakers had the ball and the game was tied, and either they were going to win it and they were going to not need to play him the next night because they had just won a close game, or it was going to go to overtime, and then he definitely wasn't going to play. Yep. So I tweeted it before the game even ended. And that seemed pretty obvious to me, like LeBron traveling from a close win at home to Phoenix to play a road game against the Suns, who they're probably going to lose to anyway, even if LeBron was in. That seemed obvious he was going to be out. And then Austin Reeves, who is the Lakers' second best player now, he's normally number 3, but Davis is already out. Reeves is good. He's just like Dante DiVincenzo. Reeves is pretty good. And we both agreed that he was not going to play either because he had hurt his ankle in the prior game. And he was like in the locker room and then out of the locker room. He was like back and forth from the locker room the whole second half. So
remember when he said he was going to play this game?
He intended to play.
Yeah, then
just total nonsense.
Literally called that nonsense out as not happening. So
yeah, that was a good call.
A little obvious.
Yeah, I mean it was obvious, but the books didn't know, because when LeBron
it's a little bit interesting. Russell Westbrook news came relatively out of nowhere. I had considered bringing it up, but I thought it was a little too thin to waste a list.
He also is terrible, so like he's not going to affect the point spread.
Sure, and like I personally was able to grab a couple props in response. I don't know what the true ideal way to handle it. I wish I was a little more like aware. I just played PRA because I was in a rush and they were close by, and I just happened to get them in. I thought for sure Schroeder and
it was Schroeder, Walker, and then Kendrick Nunn, who probably didn't have any props available. They basically had to play those 3 guys because there were no other guards on the team.
Yeah, so I figured there had to be more ball handling going around. You know, at bare minimum points and assists. I didn't have time to go digging for a PA line necessarily, but I thought that was the right way to play it, and got a little bit lucky in Lonnie
Yeah.
Walker at the end. There was some blowout risk here I got to be aware of, but you know they came in. I did have the Phoenix minus 8.5. I remember thinking there was just a point where that 8.5 popped up, and I was like, I don't think we're gonna get this again, and I took a little there, and the rest is history. I stay away
Yeah.
from the under, but I personally have not fared all that great in totals this year. That could be a little bit off the top of my head. Maybe that's not data driven, but
Yeah.
um,
We've had a couple totals that we've recommended where the closing line value wasn't strong, where we only like got a point or two of movement. So we've been directionally right on total recommendations a few times where it probably just wasn't enough value to have been a good recommendation. But we've had some others where the totals have
no,
moved
we've had a couple big
dramatically.
ones too, and
Yeah, we've
there's
had
still
both.
variance.
We've definitely had both. I think there's just been bad variance on them because like like that Hawks Grizzlies game from 2 weeks ago, the total moved by like 9 points. And
Right.
if you're doing that regularly, like they're going to win at a
Yeah,
very
we'll
high
be fine
clip.
long term there.
But we've been like 50-50 on those, if not slightly worse. And I think we've been way worse on the ones where we've only gotten like a point or two of closing line value. So, I mean, I think overall it's been a pretty unlucky NBA season. Like, I really do. I think like the expected win probability off, if we just compare to the closing line value, would be way higher than what we've actually gotten.
It really helps me to hear you say that because while I do consider myself a good gambler, I do not consider myself the best NBA gambler, and I do not necessarily have a proven track record. But I do believe in the process, and so yeah, like I'm looking at some results, and you know they haven't been ideal for me personally. Now I take responsibility. I don't necessarily play it as well as you. I don't necessarily have as many books, so there's a couple ways that I'm losing value that I'm aware of, but I also don't want to just ignore it and be like, I'm just running bad. I need to I can't treat it that way. You can treat it that way, right? So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a push and pull.
Yeah, this is like a macro point, but there are people that will say like you're lying if you're winning more than 60% of your spread bets. I agree with that unless you're like predicting LeBron is not going to play before the market knows LeBron is not going to play. Like the win probability on those bets is higher. So like
But
last
you're
year,
also that's why you size larger for
yeah,
your home run spots also, right? So that's like when it comes to blackjack, you don't when the deck's in your favor, you size accordingly, and that's a major factor in our output.
yeah. So if you took that methodology and did like a weighted average of your win percentage, so like the ones where you have 2 units are twice as valuable, twice as much input into the system as 1 unit. Like my rough win probability on like a -110 scale last year was probably in the low 60s, and this year I think it's in only the low to mid 50s. Like the break even for -110 bets is around 52.5%. I think this year there's no way I'm above 55. I have to like check everything, but I think it's probably between that 52.5 and 55. And last year it was north of 60 easily, doing the exact same system. So it's been a bit unlucky this year.
If it weren't for how often we're just completely crushing closing line value,
Right.
I personally would have to take a longer look in the mirror and make sure that I trust the process. But like, I just and when I watch the games, like I know there's a set of outcomes that can come in every game, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, the Spurs, like, we
doesn't
didn't
go
even
your
have
way
a
all the
bet on.
time.
We haven't even had bets on the Spurs lately, and they're just crushing teams that we're projecting them to lose to. Like, variance is just kind of crazy sometimes.
Absolutely.
Got it. All right. Anything else from yesterday worth recapping?
We had a lot going on in the Minnesota Dallas game. I don't think. Hold on, did we get a Miami? No, that's not a Miami update. That's a repeating of the injury report with the same information. Okay, disregard.
16 updates coming.
No, they're not going to do it. It's the same. They just tweeted everyone is still the same. It's just a reminder. The Dallas Minnesota game, if you're curious what happened there, just go to my Twitter account because I tweeted a bunch of stuff. I had Mavericks and over bets that all lost. Gobert was out and Kyle Anderson was out. I don't want to break that game down extensively because we didn't really talk about it on the show anyway. So I think most listeners probably just didn't have that one. That was one that was bad for me though, because I reacted to Gobert and to Kyle Anderson, and then Luka. It's the second game this week where the best player on the team we bet on got ejected in the first half, or maybe Luka's was early third quarter. But they were already getting killed anyway. It's not like they were going to come back. So that game was tough, but I don't know if I want to do a full recap.
There's just something that just absolutely guts me when a guy like Luka is getting ejected for arguing with officials. Like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah, they were down 20
like,
at the time, but like, yeah.
To me, like when I see the way these guys treat the refs, like I wonder what this guy, how he treats a bartender or a server in a restaurant.
Probably,
like,
honestly, probably a lot better. He's not. There's no like emotional sting there. He's in the middle of like the thing that he cares most about in the entire world.
Therefore, the right ethic is to treat these people with a lot of care and consideration because they can affect the outcome a lot. And like, it doesn't take a lot of genius to figure that out. But like, for some reason, this guy just can't. And like, I don't get it. Like last season, I remember like he came into the season like really out of shape and like all fat. He was like drinking sweet tea nonstop and like whatever. And then like, I just feel, I don't know, this guy just disappoints me. It just frustrates me. And like, it's irrational, but like, you are the king. You're the chosen one to some degree. Like, come on, man. Like, do it.
Two relevant things for betting that connect to what you just said. One, Mike Conley has 0 career technical fouls. We'll see if he keeps that streak up for the rest of his career. But just he's the nicest guy in the league. He must be. To play as long as him and never get a technical is insane. So
that is actually pretty impressive.
I think it's just a cool stat. And then maybe we want to talk about MVP for a second because a lot has changed there before we jump off.
Let's talk about it.
Because Luka does connect to that for sure.
Sure.
Okay. Luka is going backwards. I think partly it's sentiment around him. The team is now under 500. Okay, let's see if I get this to
load. I mean, he was going at a pace that just couldn't. The usage was not going to continue, and even when they were above 500, there was still some backlash about whether he would get the MVP.
Yeah. Just
with all that usage and not being a real long-term successful strategy. Now that they've lost some games, it doesn't shock me that he's dropped.
I think though I think he actually might be the best value right now though.
Really? Yeah, I was gonna say. So like, what does that do to the pricing though?
The pricing is over accounted for this because if the Mavericks go like 45-37. And Luka has the best numbers of any player in the league, I think the sentiment will turn. Like they have to win they have to be above the play-in probably. If they're a play-in team or miss the playoffs, they're not going to miss the playoffs outright. But if they're a play-in team, it's going to be really, really hard for him to win. But I think they will start playing better. They have a really talented team.
Who's in their division again?
They're with New Orleans and Memphis. So they're number 3.
So
they're not winning. They're probably not winning their division. But I think Luka is.
It's always the cheat code to avoiding the play-in.
Yeah, right. Actually, I don't think it works like that anymore, which is why the Knicks look good. The Hawks and Heat can both be in the play.
The Hawks and Heat was the situation that I read that because one of them winning the division will keep them out of the play-in was relevant because they're going to be bad enough. I thought I read that this season.
I think I had said that on here, and I don't think it's right.
No, you're the only source that I have, so it has to be right.
Yeah, I think I was wrong though. This is an important thing. We're gonna come back when we come back tomorrow. We'll have an answer on this, but for now, I'm not sure.
That's an important detail.
Okay, but they're not winning their division anyway. So, yeah, I think Luka, if they win mid-40s in games and have a good enough record that is at least comparable to the other top teams, they won't be near Boston or Milwaukee. But Luka is the second highest rated player in the NBA behind Jokic. His counting stats are going to be the best. Like, his usage may come down slightly, but he's going to finish the year the league leader in scoring. He's going to be crazy high in rebounds and assists also. He's not going to lead the league in either of those, but he's going to be among them in actually both categories. So
is it weird that I think Giannis is kind of like has no shot when like there's no reason why that should be true?
Yeah, there's no reason that should be true. I mean, Giannis is in it. I don't think there's no way you can bet Giannis now at those odds and call it a plus EV bet. Yeah, I would put him 25% or less, but he's in it. The Bucks could also get the best record in the NBA. Like that is they're ahead of Boston right now. So that would be a big variable. if the Celtics don't have the best record in the NBA, I don't think Tatum
Tatum's
wins.
in trouble without that. I agree.
Yeah.
But if they're 2 games better than the field, I think it's Tatum's award.
Yeah, fair enough. So right now, the Celtics are still the favorites to have the best record. They're better than Milwaukee, but they've lost a lot of ground with recent games. They've lost 4 out of 5.
So what are the prices that you think are the strike points for you?
I think Luka is still north of 20%. So there's not a lot of value at plus 440, but like this line is not going to change anytime soon. At least until
I'm seeing a single 400 line, and I don't even know if I'm crazy.
well, we have 440 on the screen for FanDuel. Like if he comes out at Christmas and just destroys the Lakers, which I think is probably going to happen because Davis isn't there, like that'll be a national TV game that moves the needle. And then I'm probably going to get some Luka money in. I think Jokic is in it, but the price has moved a lot. And for Jokic to win his 3rd consecutive MVP, he has to be substantially better than he was the last 2 seasons, or Denver has to get the 1 seed.
If they win the 1 seed in the West, I think he's certainly.
Yeah, but that's kind of a long shot. Like,
Understood.
like there's so many teams that are right around them, plus they're a couple games back. Like you could just make that bet on its own. I think Denver's probably like 5-1 to win to get the 1 seed. It would take more than just the 1 seed for him to win, I think.
Got it. All right.
So I'm not. Yeah, I don't think you can bet Jokic now. I don't think you can bet Embiid. I think any of the lower down guys are overpriced.
I was gonna say, are there any long shots that are live?
I don't think so. I mean,
barring injury, I don't think so either.
I think Durant and Zion and Ja have a 1% chance each. Like I wouldn't rule those guys out, but I wouldn't bet them. I think Davis is done now because of the injury. And Curry is also going to be done because of getting hurt.
Feels good to me still, but
Morant,
I'm a sucker. Yeah.
I mean,
What's the number for Durant?
25-1.
That I have some interest there.
I mean, I think a lot of people do, and there's just like a Durant feels like he's an MVP, but he's just not at the level of these other guys. His counting stats are good, but he doesn't play the defense that any of them plays. He's more like Luka with lower usage and doesn't have the rebound or assist. Like Durant is not really a good passer. His rebounding stats don't really compare. He's got Kyrie Irving on the team with him. Like I think the only real path for Durant to win MVP is like Kyrie got hurt and they still kept doing what they were doing. Like a narrative would have to form somehow around that. So like that could happen. Kyrie could get hurt and Durant could just continue to play the way he's playing. And that would definitely put him right in the conversation. But for him to be ahead of Giannis, Tatum, Luka, Jokic, Embiid, even Devin Booker, like I think he's 25-1 might be like pretty fair, but I don't think he deserves to be. You could put him ahead of Zion and Booker. I think I'd be okay with that. But he's not in the top 5. And there's so much probability tied to the top 5 guys right now. Like Embiid's been incredible. Jokic is actually playing better than he did the last 2 years. I think if he sustains it, he may have a chance. And then the guys in the top 3 are just having such incredible years. Like it's probably going to be one of them.
Yeah, the tricky part of all this is like usually there's only one guy excelling at a time, and
Right.
It's easy to catch the falling value when there's only one guy, one lead horse to catch. But when there's 3 of them, like I'm struggling to find a case where like you have to be bearish on all 3.
Yeah.
And like obviously if
young.
Giannis goes down, then like Luka and Tatum just become bigger favorites because they're having the kind of seasons and the teams are playing the certain kind of way that is going to allow them to be in this race. It's just tough for me to see anything outside those top 3 right now.
The only 2 guys that have fallen are Davis and Curry, but collectively they only accounted for like 3% of the win probability. Curry was already like 15-1, if not higher. Davis was only like 35-1. Like those guys don't move the market by that much. So it didn't really change much of anything. And yet there's just these guys at the top are playing all so well that I think like for Morant, the Grizzlies have to be the 1 seed and more probably for him to win. For Durant, I think Kyrie probably has to get injured for him to have a shot. For Zion, it's the same as Ja. Like they need the 1 seed and more. But I think the stats on the guys in the top 5 are so much better. They don't need the same level of things. I think Tatum may need it, but he is the highest probability to do that. Like Boston still should be the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They still should have the best record in the NBA. So Tatum has that going for him. I think Jokic is the best player in the NBA, so he has a shot for that reason, but I'm not recommending a bet on him here. I think I wouldn't bet any of these guys today, but I would keep a close eye on Luka turning
Did
the
you
narrative.
nibble any at Luca 440?
I'm not doing it yet because I don't think you need to. I don't think it's going to move yet, but I would keep an eye on how the narrative changes for him, like if he dominates the Lakers on Christmas. That's
I
like the
struggle with
next
narrative
big.
street. It's a never-ending battle.
Yeah, I mean, MVP, like what else is going on, right? Like they're playing Minnesota tomorrow and that game will matter. And then they have a game in Houston that no one's going to watch. And then on Christmas they get to play the Lakers at home. And even though it's the Lakers who are awful without AD, it's still a Christmas game that everyone is going to watch. And it's still the Lakers, like they're perceived as, a team that historically at least
They're a winning franchise.
Winning franchise. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. So like if Luka starts to put it together, he's the most likely to turn into a value bet in my opinion. But right now I think the market is pretty efficient.
Got it. All right. So guys, keep an eye on the Preaching Sense Twitter account. Matt will keep us updated with any of the breaking news for today, as there's some potential value. I am hoping to recover my voice for tomorrow's show. We'll be back at 10:15 a.m. tomorrow. Talk to you guys then.